We all have to deal with pain, hardship, loss, and just, day-to-day bullshit throughout our lives. And while our first impulse is to avoid all the bullshit, to get away from our problems, the fact of the matter is, there is no such thing as a life without problems. There is no such thing as just being happy and go lucky and everything working out for the best all the fucking time. If you're gonna make it through this life, you have to deal with problems. In fact, I would say life itself is a process of dealing with problems or upgrading our problems from really bad problems to slightly better problems. Therefore, you could say that the quality of our lives very much hinges on our ability to manage problems. A certain amount of pain is actually good for us. The same way, like if you never exercise your muscles, if you never stress your muscles, if you never get out and run or pick up something heavy, your body deteriorates and it begins to fall apart. But at the same time, if you go try to pick up 500 pounds on your first day in the gym, you're gonna completely destroy yourself. There's kind of like a Goldilocks zone of pain that is actually healthy for us. If we're just a couch potato and everything's always comfortable, we actually deteriorate. We become lazy and compulsive and demanding and delusional and all these horrible things. A certain amount of stress in our lives actually keeps us grounded in reality and improves mental health outcomes. But if you kind of go along that curve of pain, there eventually comes a tipping point where adding more pain or stress starts to harm our health, and it harms our ability to function well, both physically and mentally. And so ultimately, our goal here in our life is not to get rid of pain, it's simply to maintain a manageable level of stress and pain in our lives. We want to be challenged regularly. We want to have invigorating problems that we're working on. It's that sense of sacrifice or that sense of overcoming that grants us a sense of meaning and purpose in our lives. If you have nothing to overcome, if you have no challenges, if you have nothing pushing up against you, your mind starts freaking out and looking for tiny little things to become neurotic and compulsive about. Now, if you go overboard and you go too far, your body starts to break down.
I don't want someone that just goes, okay, that's not working, we'll stop that. I want someone to go, yes, that is underperforming at the moment, but given a chance, in 2 months, you're going to see results from that because you're going to build and grow your audience. I need educating on that because
Sure.
that's not my forte, that's not my skill set. And so you need co-workers and friends that will challenge you. And I believe in challenge, healthy challenge, because an opinion is not an opinion, it's an idea until it's challenged. So if I say, I believe we should go this way, and you say, do you really? And then I explain why. I've stood on the table for it. So now it's my opinion, and I know it's my opinion. But up until that point, it was just an idea. It was a belief, but not necessarily a correct one. Real friend of yours will never be of hindrance to you. And there were definitely people who weren't as comfortable with me not being in the same situation that they were in, doing the same things.
One thing that is certain in this world is, everyone that's born is going to die. That means that every single person on this planet is going to experience some form of grief. I've never been a person to run away from those emotions, and I never believe that, it gets easier. People always say grief gets easier. I believe that the circle of grief always stays the same. I just believe that we grow stronger around it. I would always advise people to talk about the loved ones that they've lost. I would always encourage people to settle into every single emotion that they're feeling and not try and hide it or not try and run away from it. I would say to people that, even though your grief is painful and even though your grief hurts, it can also be the most beautiful time of your life, the most beautiful moments that you have left. Because all the pain that you're feeling now is because of beautiful memories of the person that you love and the person that you've lost.
if you look at any man who's very good at being a man, most of them have had extremely traumatic lives.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk about the most brave man you can think of, he's been through trauma. If you think of the best soldier you can think of, he's been through trauma. You think about anything, the man who's going to charge into the burning building, the fireman, he's been through trauma. If you find a man who's never had any traumatic experiences, he's terrible at being a man.
Yeah.
He's weak and he's soft and he'll collapse and he's never struggled. I know me, and I don't want to tell a bunch of stories on the internet, but I know all the I went through and all the pain I had to suffer to become the man I am. And every time I meet another guy who has his life in order, it's the same story. This fucked me up, but I thought, I'm going to attack the world anyway.
Yeah.
And that's how it goes, where people make excuses and externalize because they're taking that trauma and that pain instead of going, I fucked up. She left me because I wasn't good enough. I'm going to become better. Instead, she is the problem.
Yeah, like we were
it's
saying.
there. And then they lose their ability to go and become something. They lose their own motivational force. And then they sit there with a fucking ego and arrogance and go, I don't need to become any better. I can stay a jackass. It's all her fault. I'll find another one. And then it happens on repeat. We live in a very, very hateful world. And I think love comes from a position of strength. I think you always have to be a strong person to love. I think you have to be an intelligent person to love, which is why stupid people are so hateful. And you have to work on yourself. And I think you have to become strong in your body and mind to love things. It's not easy to love things and people when they do you wrong. It's not easy to love a woman again after your last one did whatever. It's not easy to do it. You have to be a strong individual. And that's why I think love comes from strength, which is why I always say strength is so important mentally and physically. I say that all the time. It's all I talk about. I say that if you're a man, the easiest way to improve your life in every single possible way is to just work on your physical strength, and your mental strength will follow, and you become a better person and you can love. You can't pour from an empty cup, and before you give love to anybody else, you have to truly love yourself. And I think the easiest way to love yourself as a man is to be proud of yourself. And to be proud of yourself, you have to decide who you want to be inside of the metaverse, inside of the matrix. You have to decide the character you want to be and try your best to achieve it. I think that most people failing in life know very well they're failing. And it doesn't matter what avatar you decide to absorb or who you decide to be. You can decide to be it, and you know true in your heart if you're giving 100% of your energy towards becoming it or not. It doesn't matter if you want to become a famous musician. Doesn't matter if you want to become a bodybuilder. Doesn't matter if you want to become a pro fighter. Doesn't matter what you want to be. You know in your heart if you're actually trying or not. You have to decide what you want to be and try and become it. And a lot of the people who are genuinely unhappy or miserable in their hearts know they're not trying that hard.
The prolonged period of things not going away, and we know that a key part of getting out of a rut like this or a failure loop is taking ownership of those failures, of those problems. That's very important. But guess what? That alone doesn't solve them at all. Just saying, I didn't get promoted, okay, it was my fault, period. Yeah. That doesn't solve the fact that you didn't get promoted. I'm not getting called back to do this other contracting job. It's my fault. Does that mean you get called back? No, it doesn't mean anything. Taking ownership means that you actually have to identify the problem. You know you're responsible for it. And then you actually have to solve the problem. That's what you have to do. Just taking ownership of the problem doesn't make it go away. You have to take ownership of the problem. You have to take ownership of finding a solution. And then you have to take ownership of implementing that solution. So this is real straightforward. And this is what makes this very challenging, is this idea that but how could I possibly control this or that? How can I possibly take ownership of the fact? Now, this is a weak one. How can I possibly take ownership of the fact that my boss is an idiot and fired me? How can that be my fault? That he didn't see how good I was, right? Okay, we see what's going on there. You obviously aren't being introspective and taking a look and saying, okay, this is obviously my fault. Here's what I need to change. So there's things like that where you go, look, you're just not. It was same thing with relationships, right? She broke up with me. How can I own that? Well, maybe you look at yourself and you see how you acted as a partner in that relationship. And if you just want to look at that person and say it was her fault, she was crazy, and it was her fault, she didn't understand how awesome I was. Yeah. You need to take ownership of your own behavior. Why did she think that? Now, you do get to these things where you have no control.